This rich man owns not just one but two amazing gardens, and he brags about his wealth and everything he owns to others, only for him to be humbled in the hands of destiny. So for the purpose of this video, let's just call him garden owner, because he owns two amazing gardens, and these gardens are filled with trees of amazing fruits such as grapes, dates, and other fruits as well, and crops inclusive. And in between his two gardens, there is a river. And you know how important water is to a garden. So the presence of that river is just like an additional bonus to him. Annually, his two gardens produces a lot of fruits and crops, which he happens to earn a lot of money from. So he was just living on top of his world, enjoying his life to the fullest. Garden owner has a friend who we just call friend, and one day garden owner looked at his garden and sees how blessed his garden is and how blessed his life entirely is. So he decided to brag to friend about his life and his wealth and basically everything he owns. So garden owner told friend, he was like, look at me and look at you. I'm doing better than you in every single aspect of life. I have more money than you, I have more children than you, I have more servants and workers than you. You are just living a pity life. He was just trying to belittle friend and make him look like he doesn't matter or something of that nature. He didn't stop there. He even went further to step into the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. He was like, you see this thing they call hereafter or judgment day? That's just some fairy tale. I don't think that's ever happening. And if by any chance it's happening, when that day comes, I'm going to have better than what I'm having in this worldly life. Man was just feeling as if there is no one above him, like he's the only one that matters. He was like, look at the products of these two gardens. Look at what I'm harvesting annually from these two gardens. I don't think this is ending anytime soon. So his gardens produces a lot, to an extent he thinks there is no day that will come that the garden will be normal. Like the garden was just there to live till eternity. But you see, friend is a smart guy, a really smart guy. He knows Allah. He knows the only one that give is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he tries to advise garden owner. He was like, are you trying to disbelieve in Allah? Are you trying to be ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who created you from nothing, the one who gave you everything you own when there was a time that you had nothing? Disbelieve in Allah as you wish, but as for me, He is my Lord, and I am never disobeying Him or disbelieving in Him in whatever circumstance I may see myself in. And then friend continues to advise garden owner. He was like, if you enter your garden, instead of bragging, you should be saying glorifying words to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such as Masha Allah, la quwwata illa billah, which means this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, and there is no power except from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like a humble servant trying to bow down before his Lord. Friend told garden owner, I might not have many children and workers like you do, but there is something I am having which you don't, and that is faith. And because of my faith, I have hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala one day will grant me something that is much better than your gardens. And perhaps you might just wake up one day and realize that your garden has been destroyed, or maybe the river in between the two gardens has just dried up all of a sudden. Anything can happen. Nobody knows what tomorrow has in store for us. Allahu Akbar. And as predicted by friend, one day garden owner woke up and every single thing within his garden was destroyed. Completely, everything was spoiled down to ashes. Nothing can be benefited again from that garden. So he started clapping his hands in regret, because he knows he spent a lot of money, a huge amount of money on that garden, and now his garden is lying flat. Nothing was standing no more again on that garden. All gone overnight. This came as a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for disbelieving in Him and being ungrateful servant towards Him. And as you know, then and only then garden owner returned to his full senses, and he was like, had it been I did not disbelieve in Allah, had it been I have been a grateful servant to Allah, I might still have my gardens. So he regretted only after he was humbled. So sad. And to round up the story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said something similar to what He said in the story of Qur'an, as I mentioned in the previous episode. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَا كَانَ لَهُ مِنْ فِئَةٍ يَنْصُرُونَهُ مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُنْتَصِرِينَ. But this time around, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَمْ تَكُنْ لَهُ فِئَةٌ يَنْصُرُونَهُ مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ وَمَا كَانَ مُنْتَصِرًا. In the story of Qur'an, وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُنْتَصِرِينَ. But here, وَمَا كَانَ مُنْتَصِرًا. Though the wordings might be different, but it all means the same thing, which is he has no one or he has no group to save him against Allah, nor could he even save himself. The end. So what are the lessons we can derive from this story? Firstly, wealth generally is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see whether a servant will be grateful or ungrateful. If a servant is grateful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase upon his blessings. And if a servant is ungrateful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might just rip up the wealth of him or punish him in some other way. Secondly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might decide to give the disbeliever from the luxuries of this dunya. That is because this world and its luxuries has no importance in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from his servants in this life is piety and faith in him. Thirdly, when you are amazed by something, you say, MashaAllah. You can even add, La quwwata illa billah. However, the scholars say you only say, MashaAllah to yourself. When it's for someone else, you tell them, Allahumma barik. 4. Your wealth and children are basically nothing if they do not aid you in coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 5. A believer should always stand tall on his feet against a disbeliever and don't give them any chance to look down upon you and your faith, and always advise them by showing them what's the truth. And finally, don't look down upon people simply because you have something more than them. Today it might be you, and tomorrow it might not be. So yeah, I do hope you enjoyed this one and benefited from it as well. And as always, follow for more amazing Quranic stories. Assalamu alaikum.